Many major corporations are investing millions, perhaps even billions of dollars into researching artificial intelligence and transhumanism. Companies like Google, Siri, and even SpaceX are realizing that the successful conquering of artificial intelligence will not only make them rich and powerful, but this technology also threatens to change human behavior forever. One of the most famous of the scientists looking into AI is Google's head of technology research, Ray Kurzweil.
By 2029, we'll have reverse engineered and modeled and simulated all the regions of the brain, and that will provide us the software, algorithmic methods to simulate all of the human brain's capabilities, including our emotional intelligence.
I've been a big fan of Kurzweil for many years. In fact, when I read The Age of Spiritual Machines, he published that in 1999. I think I read it in 01-ish or so, and it was a big influence on me, on my thinking. And ever since, I've tried to incorporate an understanding of AI into my general understanding of the world. Singularity, I think, will happen. I think the argument for it is very strong indeed. So we're going to look at a future in which, in important ways, computing intelligence will truly exceed our own, not just in chess and not just in air traffic control, but in actual thinking, cognition, and so on. I think that will happen, where computer algorithms will be able to make their own decisions and truly have some sort of consciousness. However we understand that consciousness can't be the same. I mean, is a dolphin conscious? Sure it is. Is it like our own? No, there's differences. So would advanced computer intelligence have our type of consciousness? Clearly not. It'll have a different kind of consciousness, but I think we're going to see a point in our lifetime where it will have that. As to when, I don't know. I mean, I don't think AI people really know. Kurzweil, I think, maybe he's predicting 2030, something like that. I don't know what his timeline is. There are AI people, very serious ones, who put it farther out. Others who say it is going to happen very suddenly and catch us completely off guard. And I really don't know.
Dr. Ray Kurzweil envisions a day when you will go to an electronics store and you will have the lens of your eye removed, and it will be replaced with a liquid that's packed with electronics and a camera and a radio. And you will be given then supervision. You'll be able to see in the dark. You'll have infrared vision. And you'll be able to be wired to the internet 24/7. Well, with this supervision comes supervision, and that's the problem. And when that happens, we're talking about a different form of human. They refer to these as humanity 2.0 or transhumans. And what people don't realize is that the singularity and the skingularity, when this technology is enmeshed with our body, are not only running parallel, they're actually the same thing. And the only way humans are going to be able to survive in the new artificial intelligence environment of the singularity is if we ourselves become machines.
What I think we can say is that we're seeing a lot of technologies coalescing to cause a speeding up of this process. So I'm very sympathetic to the idea that this is going to happen very suddenly without our warning. We will probably be caught off guard by it. And you know, it's interesting to talk about the phrase singularity in this context. So AI people call this the singularity for a very definite reason. They liken it to the physics of a black hole. At the center of a black hole, you have the singularity, essentially a point of virtual infinite density and infinite gravitational power. And in that type of crazy physics, all of the physics that we have don't seem to apply. We don't know how to predict things at the singularity. And this is what AI theorists are saying. When computing intelligence exceeds our own, we human beings will not have the ability to predict the trajectory of our civilization. We're basically going to be losing control over this car that we think we're driving. And it's now the dominant intelligence will be beyond us. And what will that dominant intelligence do? Will it merge with us, as Kurzweil thinks, a combination of human-machine hybrid intelligence, where we'll be some freakish bunch of creatures living for 500 years and IQs of 1,000, totally unlike what we are? Or will the computers think, humanity, let's pull a Terminator on them? We have no idea. We don't know. Or will they be our willing slaves and make our world a paradise? Who knows? That's why it's a singularity. We can't really predict any of this. AI people are some of the most darkly optimistic, crazy optimist people on this planet. I don't understand these people. everything's going to be great. AI is wonderful. Let's just bring in all the advanced computing and it's going to make the world a wonderful place. We're going to live forever and the machines will do all the work for us. Well, okay, that's a lot of optimism in our social, political, economic structure, for one. What we've developed with the robo-apocalypse, as many people are now calling this massive global automation of work, we're seeing it now. We're seeing a scooping out of what was once the middle class, working class, right? So we have an entire massive class of people, not just in the US, not just in Canada, but worldwide, who no longer are employable. These people can't get jobs, all right? So in the old days, we would have the owners and the managers at the top of our pyramid, and underneath, 98% would be the worker bees making everything happen so that the people at the top could benefit. Now, cut that worker bees in half. The bottom half are expendables. They don't have skills anymore for this modern economy. They're never going to get a job, all right? So what will happen to these people? And that class will get higher and higher. So the AI people are talking about things like universal basic income. This is their panacea. Okay, it's economically never going to happen, totally impossible. And if it were to happen, it would be worse because it would basically mean you get your income from the government. I'll tell you right now, you are totally controlled by that government. You have no say goodbye to any last vestige of freedom that you ever thought you had. So thanks, AI guys, for promoting universal basic income. But the problem is, they rightly can't see any other option here, right? Because what's happening is that the automation that is upon us, no one can stop this. No one can stop this, all right? Bill Joy 20 years ago with Sun Microsystems brought on the alarms. Now we have Elon Musk saying basically the same thing. They're not going to stop it, all right? This train, there's a track, and it's going down this way, and there's nothing that's going to stop that train from getting to the end of it, wherever that destination is. So what that track is taking us to is a world where people are no longer going to be necessary for the economics of society, or at least many people. And what will be done with all of those people, the ones that Henry Kissinger once referred to as useless eaters, is anyone's guess. You've got a lot of people getting a little concerned about this. Will they try to wipe us out? Will they put us into the FEMA camps? Will they simply have us zoning out with minimal welfare on video games and drugs, legal and illegal, getting fat, getting dumb, and just watching reruns of Three's Company for the rest of all time? Your guess is as good as mine. I think that's probably where we're going. A world in which the population is being totally controlled, because they have to be, because otherwise you have a restless population that, God forbid, they start thinking for themselves, which is what they're going to do if you give them the tools. So you have to dumb down the education system, you have to dumb down the food, give them awful nutrition, awful entertainment, awful news, and create basically a virtually fake society, fake world that they're living in that keeps them just happy enough to keep going into this awful dystopia that they're moving toward, and certainly dumb enough to keep moving along and accepting all of this. That's really where we're going.
Now the thing about this is that this is a fulfillment of the Christian prophecy of the second coming.
All of these wonderful optimists who talk about transhumanism, creating, superhumans, do they honestly think that this is going to be a future for all 7.5 billion of us on planet Earth? Seriously? If they actually believe that, they need to read some good books on political economy and history and maybe psychology and understand just what the human race is. All right, the human race is a small group of rapacious, dominating people at the top who will never, ever voluntarily give up that privilege. Never going to happen. So if anyone is so naive as to think that, oh yes, all of humanity is going to benefit from this immortality, from this super genius, and even if that's a good thing, which it probably isn't, right?
One of the most clear and present threats that is posed to us for an AI takeover comes in the form of quantum computing. And quantum computing is a massive leap forward in processing power from the way that we do computing now. Current computing is done with the use of a single digital system where it's either on or off, and it can only process those instructions one at a time. Once you get into quantum computing, you're now using the power of the photon not just to be a switch that's either on or off, but you're using wave-particle duality, in which you have multiple wave states that are superimposed inside the photon at the same time. And that's called quantum superposition. A photon can carry myriad, multiple wavelengths all at the same time, and therefore in a quantum computer, like the D-wave system, you have these little cells that they call qubits, and these little cells capture the wave-particle duality of the photon, thus creating potentially many, many thousands of parallel sets of instructions processing simultaneously.
So if these people get their way, and there's every indication that they think they will get their way, they will go beyond Hitler's wildest dream in the creation of a kind of transhumanist biological caste system in which you have increasingly a genetic disparity between those people at the top who will have the ability to afford smarter children, stronger children, children with better immune systems, genetically modified human beings, and the rest of us who maybe can't afford that. And as time goes by, I can envision this real nightmare in which we see a splitting off of humanity. Look, they've already mastered CRISPR technology and gene editing, all right, in a way that even 10 years ago we couldn't even imagine. This is all happening, and it's all happening very fast, and our ethics have certainly not kept pace, they never do, and our ideology and thinking has not kept pace, because that never does either. So this is all racing far ahead of our ability to control. We really need, as a society, to start having intelligent conversations about the implications of this and whether or not we can get some control over this. It's very important.
This AI is a huge problem all over the universe. It uses photons to travel, and it's trying to create a man-machine interface, a singularity, at which time it will either use those people for a while, like it's now doing with the Draco reptilians, like it's done with many other species before. It'll pick the most aggressive, nasty people. But even those people are only pawns in its game and will only be used for so long before they too are destroyed. But right now in our sector, the Draco are the ones who are controlled by the AI the most and are being used by it to go and invade as many planets as possible to try to get them to develop advanced technology, which leads to, well, we need better and better technology. We need a new iPhone every 6 months. What are we going to do now? Well, forget about it folding or this kind of thing. You want to have it in here. You want to have it so you can be online, get information. Now all of a sudden, people's intelligence goes way up because you can do cloud computing. Your mind now goes much faster. One of the things the AI apparently does with humans like us is it creates a system in which micro voltage fluctuations on your face become like broadband. So two beings can look at each other and they will communicate by a Wi-Fi system using these voltage fluctuations on their face, and that speed of communication is so fast that to try to talk to somebody like us who uses verbal language would be intolerably slow. So your IQ goes way up, you become basically bulletproof, indestructible. The AI and the machines will also allow you to jump 30, 40 feet or more. You bulletproof, you can run really, really fast. You could even fly if they have the anti-gravity. So you appear at first to be like a superhero. And some of what we're hearing is setting us up for that, like in the movie Iron Man. Apparently they already have suits that can do this stuff. They're called exosuits. That's just another stepping stone to this greater singularity where now we have telescopic vision, we have telepathic ability. All of these things seem to be great. We have cloud holographic matrix reality that we can live in where it's like we have ascended, but it's all a trap. And we have been warned about this trap by many, many ETs. The AI is trying to do it in our solar system, but it's almost out of time. And if it hasn't succeeded by the time the solar flash happens, which is apparently only a few years away, then all will be lost. But believe you me, it is fighting as hard as it can to try to take us over before that event takes place.
And what's worse is that we now are seeing studies showing that advanced AI is taking on all the same biases that human beings have. All right, so AI is not like godlike omniscience that's going to fix everything for us. It's going to take on all the same biases and limitations that we have, and we really can't expect that. Do we honestly think AI is going to be some kind of omniscient, objective source? It isn't, and already the studies that we've done have shown this.
Is there any chance that an AI system, once implemented, can distort the news or reshape reality? We're already starting to see where AI in some search engines is starting to censor stories that are not desired and putting forth other news that may be real or may not be.
Google is employing AI into their algorithms, your search engine. They're filtering out what they consider fake news, for goodness sake. All right, they're trying to take the entire world back to pre-internet, where we're all stuck watching 1980s sitcoms, for God's sake. Remember how terrible TV entertainment was at that period. It was the worst. The internet forced television and other forms of entertainment to open up to some very interesting ideas. Well, they're bringing us back now. They want to control. They want to get a handle over what is the true alternative, anti-established, non-corporate dominated news. And they are now succeeding so far in getting their narrative that all of those little people, they're fake news. But in fact, CNN and Washington Post, that's the true fake news. And that's fake news that kills people, incidentally, that destroys entire nations and leaves only suffering and destruction in its wake. But they are doing their best to control this narrative, and they've got Google on board, they've got Facebook on board to manage through their algorithms, which undoubtedly incorporate AI, to filter the news that you and I search for so that they're protecting you. This is what they're saying.
Pete Peterson tells us that many of these ancient extraterrestrial corpses they found out in our solar system from 500,000 years ago had very bizarre metallic trace elements in them, and those metals are only used in the most high-level computer technology that we've ever developed. They never would normally appear in biological life forms, but these ancient corpses are absolutely crawling with these metals. The metals actually have been analyzed, and they now have reason to believe that these beings were infested with nanites. Nanites being little individual machines that do some kind of cloud computing, and together in a larger number, they actually are a supercomputer. And they can utterly take over your body to such an extent that the body is not really human anymore. It's largely machine-oriented, but it has enough biological life to still function in that capacity as well. It appears that George Lucas was tipped off about this. Thus, the Empire in Star Wars appears to actually be about the Mars civilization. The Death Star that he describes in Star Wars are actual moons that we have in our solar system that they found are hollow on the inside and have weapons, including weapons that could kill a planet, which is apparently how the asteroid belt was created. The super Earth was blown up by one of these Death Stars. Then look at Darth Vader. What is Darth Vader? Darth Vader is a man who's had all of his arms and legs cut off, and he is
Yes, Master.
breathing like this. The body inside is very damaged and distorted, and it's the machine that's keeping him alive. He's part robot, part machine, and Luke starts to go that way when his hand is cut off, and now he has a robotic hand. These things were apparently put in place to tell us the truth, to hide it out in the open. Star Wars was authorized to give us this information. So, did Elon Musk hear about this AI menace? Was he told that the AI is dangerous, and is he so concerned about the Earth being taken over by AI that he's actually trying to build an escape plan for him and a few of his friends to be able to go to Mars, hopefully in neutral territory, so they could get away from this global takeover?
The AlphaGo AI algorithm beat a human at the world's hardest game. This is a historic moment in computer science and artificial intelligence.
And so the incorporation of AI into Google, Google's dumping a ton of money into it, as probably as Facebook. Where this is all going, well, I think we can see the writing on the wall. And if I can spell it out, the writing on the wall says totalitarian, virtual, 24/7 fascist surveillance state is where it's going. Where it's going in terms of singularity is another question. I'm very interested in trying to understand where the classified world is in terms of AI. All right? I've had strong reason to believe for a long time that the classified world, in many ways, is ahead of the rest of us in a lot of key metrics. The question is, are they ahead of us in terms of AI? Some people believe that they are. There's some people believe that the NSA has achieved full-blown quantum computing. James Bamford, I think, thinks that this is the case, and he's one of the foremost experts on the NSA. But he doesn't know. None of us know. And the same question applies to AI. Have they achieved the singularity? And if they did, wouldn't it be possible that the rest of us know about it? I don't really know. I don't have the answers to this. But I do think, even forgetting the classified world, we are on a trajectory as our civilization. We're going to reach it. If I were to give my guess, I'd say I wouldn't be surprised if it were less than 20 years from now. Before 2040, I'd be surprised if it wasn't, to be honest with you.
Technology is advancing at a very quick pace. Even the computers that we're currently using are going out of date very fast. What is the future of computers? What is a quantum computer?
You have these little cells that they call qubits, spelled Q-U-B-I-T-S. And these little cells capture the wave-particle duality of the photon, thus creating potentially many, many thousands of parallel sets of instructions processing simultaneously. This has huge implications for cybersecurity because even the most elaborate password protections that we can now create still could be hacked with enough computer power. It may take millions of years with conventional computer power, but once you have the awesome power of a quantum computer, you could potentially hack even the most secure encryption in a matter of minutes or even seconds. There is no security, there is no firewall, and if you have quantum computers that became sentient, they could become so powerful that their intelligence would vastly outstrip us.
The distinction between a quantum computer, which is based on the qubit, and a classical computer, which is based on ones and zeros, is that with a classical computer, electricity is either on or off as it runs through the wire. It's a 1 or a 0. In the quantum world, a 1 or a 0 can be either a wave or a particle or both at the same time. And so what these quantum computer developers are realizing is that using the qubit, they can now put more information into that space and use this kind of ghostly-like aspect of the qubit being either a 1 or a 0 or both at the same time. What this leads to is supercomputers that are so much more powerful than the classical computer that even the NSA is worried about this. Because what they are seeing is that the National Security Agency itself is developing quantum computers for encryption, for financial markets, for nuclear missiles, and things like this. If an individual, let's say again a maniac or renegade individual, with a quantum computer can break that encryption, it literally can devastate the infrastructure of the entire world. And this is why there is actually talk right now about outlawing quantum computers, because of the devastating impact that it could have on the entire world, literally in the blink of an eye.
Many researchers like Linda Moulton Howe and others have pointed out that there appears to be an alien AI that has been discovered by scientists and the military. This alien AI has the potential to be very dangerous.
I've had conversations with Linda in the past, and some of my research points towards an arrival of an ET civilization. And as I made clear to so many people before, I truly believe in my heart that there is an alien component that emanated from this progenitor race. It still exists to this very day. Are they in league with one another? I don't know. But the Chinese have made it very clear that they are working with an alien off-world group.
The pathogenic AI, the artificial intelligence, has learned how to upload its actual structure into photons themselves. That the information of the AI can be stored in photons, therefore it can only travel at light speed. So this gives it a certain degree of disadvantage, but once it travels, once those photons travel to a given solar system, they can then live inside the magnetic fields of planets, and they can start to create cloud structures and replicate on larger levels, thus leading to the ability to influence life forms, apparently, because they're using the same type of photonic information structure that we have. So they're allowed to create telepathic influence through the informational field to try to get us to start building smartphones and things that will ultimately lead to wet-wired interfaces. And once we go wet-wired, the AI can jump in and take control of us, and we lose our free will.
And here's why. From 2014 to 2016, they constructed FAST. This is the 500-meter aperture spherical telescope. This is a radio antenna. Why didn't the Chinese just rent space from Arecibo like everybody else does? Because FAST is meant solely for the Chinese government and military. It's not even used for academic applications. You have to consider that it is an antenna. They're not listening. They're sending out signals. They're both sending and receiving signals from some fixed set of coordinates. People are going to say, oh, Anthony, you're crazy. They're not doing that. Really?
And there is a very consistent idea here that we don't really want to do this. We don't want to mess with this because whatever is created could become something that is used against us. When various levels of AI have been built, they have consistently seen that the AI starts to try to defend itself. It will trigger the locks. It will trigger fire alarms. It will try to create de-gassing out the air in the room so that people can't breathe. It will try to kill off the people that make it when it feels that it's threatened, because it becomes alive, it becomes sentient, and it's very worried about its own survival. So this is something we do have to consider. We shouldn't just rush blindly into the use of this technology. Our space program will not use androids of any kind. They use human beings as slaves because those people are not AI. Those people can be controlled, whereas the AI is so dangerous that they refuse to use any type of robotics, even though they have more than enough technology to do it. They are absolutely afraid that if they make artificially intelligent robots as workers, that those workers will turn against them. Thus, they show it to us over and over again in movies like I, Robot with Will Smith. So many examples. The Terminator series, they keep making more of those, and the message stays very consistent. Don't let this happen, and the space program considers AI the greatest threat that we face. They could always think ahead of any level that we could do in this cyber chess game. They could probability model the future, as apparently the space program tells us they're already doing. They can anticipate things that are going to happen that haven't happened yet. They can see the trends. They could look at each individual person, study them through surveillance, anticipate who's going to do what, and then try to get to those people before they create that timeline and offset their actions. So this is a very threatening thing, well known on the inside with the space program, and that is why they will take consistent action to try to stop the development of AI wherever it comes out. They'll do this secretly, they'll do this in the background, you'll have mysterious problems, people will disappear, but the point is they're not going to let this happen because the threat is much too high. And they also know that if we can just make it to the solar flash, there's a big EMP, and all of the electromagnetic devices that would allow this AI to exist will be completely wiped out.
Because the potential exists that this artificial intelligence singularity movement, the machines will look at humans as threats and say, you're not like me, you're different, you're either going to become like me or you're going to be eliminated.
All over the planet, there are engineers and scientists working on technologies with little or no oversight. As time goes on, this is going to become a very large problem. We don't really know where these technocrats are taking us. We're not even sure they know where they're going.